Imagine being 19 years old, playing on clay in Austria, and you are one game away from eliminating a Grand Slam champion. Not just any champion either. Jelena Ostapenko, the woman who walked into Roland Garros in 2017 as an unseeded teenager, and walked out with the trophy by hitting the ball harder than anyone thought was physically reasonable. And you, Alex, a kid from the Philippines who trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy, you have her on the ropes. 5-1 in the second set. The crowd can feel it. The commentators can feel it. The people watching on their phones halfway, across the world, refreshing the score every 30 seconds, they can feel it too. And then somehow, in a way that still does not make complete sense when you try to explain it out loud, it slips away. Not slowly either. All at once. Like sand. Through your fingers. That is what happened at the Linz Open in what became one of the most talked about matches of the 2026 WTA season. And the reason people are still talking about it is not just because of how dramatic the ending was. It is because the internet convinced itself that something dirty happened. That Ostapenko manufactured a moment, engineered some kind of psychological trick, and stole a match she had no business winning. And look, when you watch a lead that massive disappear in real time, your brain searches for a villain. It needs one. Because the alternative, accepting that tennis can be that brutal and that unpredictable even when you are doing everything right, that is a harder thing to sit with. But the real story here is so much more interesting than any cheating narrative. And it starts long before that fateful 7th game. You have to understand who Alex actually is to appreciate what she was doing in that match. This is not some wildcard player who got lucky in the draw. She grew up building her game on clay at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. She developed this heavy left-handed topspin that genuinely messes with people because it comes at you from an angle that right-handed players are just not used to defending. She is patient in a way that most teenagers are not. She reads the court tactically, moves opponents around, and she has this stillness to her under pressure that feels way beyond her years. Against Ostapenko, she came out in the first set and played some of the cleanest, most controlled clay court tennis you will see from someone her age. Think about what that means for a second. Ostapenko, a player who won a Grand Slam by essentially refusing to play any shot that was not a full-blooded winner, was being completely outmaneuvered. Alex was dragging her wide, controlling the geometry of the points and making sure that whenever Ostapenko tried to step up and take over a rally, the ball was never quite in the right place for her to do it. She built it to 4-2, and everything looked like it was going exactly to plan. And then Ostapenko just flipped a switch. 4 straight games. That is what it took. Out of nowhere, her returns started landing, her winners started finding lines, and the first set was gone 6-4 before Alex or anyone watching could really process the shift. Now that is a brutal experience. You outplay someone for the better part of a set. You do almost everything right, and the scoreboard still goes against you. A lot of players at 19 fold in that moment. They start second-guessing themselves, they tighten up, and the match gets away from them in the second set before it even really gets started. Alex did not do that. She came back out in the second set with this quiet, almost stubborn focus. She started breaking Ostapenko's serve, then she broke it again. She was forcing errors, grinding down that notoriously inconsistent Ostapenko service game, and building a lead that felt, by every reasonable metric, completely unassailable. 5-1, a set point in the 7th game. The Filipina fans watching online were already drafting their celebration messages, and Alex looked completely in control of where this match was going. This is the moment the match changed. Forever. And this is also the moment the internet lost its mind. Because down 5-1, staring down the very real possibility of losing this match, Ostapenko got into a visible and emotional argument with someone in the crowd. Not a glance, not a quick comment, a full confrontation, charged and visible, that stopped the natural flow of the match and had everyone watching trying to figure out exactly what was happening. And here is the thing. If you were watching on your laptop without full audio, if you only had the visual of a player stopping play to engage in some kind of conflict with the stands, it looked suspicious. It looked like a calculated move. A player using chaos to manufacture. A pause to break her opponent's rhythm at the single most critical moment in the match. That is where the cheating story came from. People online started saying she staged the whole thing, that it was deliberate disruption dressed up as emotion. But there is no evidence of that. No illegal timeout. No medical intervention. No rule violation. What there is evidence of is something that is honestly far more terrifying to face across the net. That confrontation did not calm Ostapenko down. It lit her up. Ostapenko is one of the most emotionally volatile players on the entire tour. That is not a criticism. That is just the reality of how she is built. She does not process anger by retreating into herself. She processes it by attacking. And down 5-1, with a hostile crowd against her, with her back completely against. The wall, something inside her shifted in a direction that was absolutely devastating for Alex to face in that moment. The misfiring stopped. The double faults disappeared, and what emerged over those final games of that second set looked like a completely different player wearing the same clothes. She moved inside the baseline, sometimes a full 2 meters inside. She was taking the ball early, hitting flat and hard into the deepest corners of the court with margins that made no logical sense given the score and the pressure she was under. And the pace of it, the sheer speed at which she was executing gave Alex no time at all. No time to reset, no time to get into position, no time to set up the kind of defensive slices that had worked so beautifully earlier in the match. 6 straight games. From 5-1 down, Ostapenko won 6 consecutive games to close out the second set 7-5 and end the match in 1 hour and 43 minutes. When you read that as a statistic, it barely feels real. And watching it live, it felt even less real. People in the crowd were genuinely stunned. Now here is where this story needs to slow down. Because the most important part of what happened in Linz is not the comeback. It is what the comeback revealed about Alex and where her game is right now. Because this loss is not a catastrophe. It is an education, a brutal, expensive, deeply uncomfortable education that most players do not receive this early in their careers. Alex proved something massive in this match. She proved she can build a tactical game plan against a Grand Slam champion and execute it under real pressure. She proved her topspin and court geometry can completely dismantle one of the most aggressive baseliners on the tour. She proved she can absorb a first set collapse and come back mentally stronger rather than mentally broken. That is not a small thing. That is genuinely remarkable for a 19-year-old. But there is a gap, and it revealed itself clearly at 5-1. The gap is what you might call the finishing instinct. That cold, almost ruthless recognition that an opponent is broken and that the only thing left to do is end it immediately. Without hesitation, without caution, without mercy. The players who consistently collect trophies, rather than just compete for them, they do not wait for opponents to surrender. When they get someone to 5-1 in the second set, they step on their throat. They serve bigger. They hit heavier. They turn the pressure up to a level that makes the idea of a comeback psychologically impossible before it ever becomes physically possible. Alex in those final moments played not to lose rather than playing to win. And in tennis, at the highest level, that difference is everything. She went to her slices to keep balls in play. She waited for Ostapenko to miss rather than forcing the errors herself. And against a player who can destroy you the instant you give her room to breathe, that is an invitation. It is not a flaw in Alex as a person. She fought. She genuinely fought all the way through. But fighting and finishing are completely different skills, and knowing when to switch from one to the other is something that only comes with experience and hard lessons, exactly like this one. The cheating narrative floating around this match does a disservice to everyone involved. To Ostapenko, because it completely erases one of the most psychologically impressive comebacks you will see in a regular WTA event. A 5-1 deficit in the second set with the first set already gone is the kind of hole that most professional players never escape. She escaped it in under 30 minutes. That deserves real acknowledgement, not conspiracy theories. And it does a disservice to Alex because it steals the real lesson from her. The lesson is not that she was robbed. The lesson is that she was good enough to put a Grand Slam champion in a 5-1 hole, and that she does not yet have the killer instinct to bury someone when they are down there. That second part is completely fixable, and the fact that She was even in that position at 19 years old on clay against Ostapenko in a round of 16 at a serious WTA event. Tells you everything you need to know about the trajectory of her career. Her coaching. Team will have watched this match back already, multiple times. And what they are looking for, what they have to work on, is how she approaches the closing stages of matches. Not just tactically, but the mental framework. The willingness to shift gears from controlling a match to actively terminating it, because the tactics were largely right. That part of her game is already there. It is the internal switch, the one that tells you to stop being careful and start being ruthless, that still needs sharpening. Alex is going to win big matches. If you actually watch her play and study how she constructs points, it is not a question of whether she reaches the highest levels of this tour. It is only a question of when. But Linz is one of those matches that shapes careers. The players who go on to do something genuinely special are not the ones who avoid these painful moments. They are the ones who take them seriously, who leave the court frustrated and disappointed and channel that into fuel rather than bitterness. Ostapenko did not cheat. What she did was remind the entire tour why she is still dangerous, why experienced players are never truly dead in a match, and why a 5-1 lead in tennis, unlike in almost any other sport, means absolutely nothing until that final point drops. And Alex, for her part, gave everyone watching a genuine preview of something exciting. A player still finding where her ceiling is, still developing that final lethal edge, but already capable of putting Grand Slam champions in serious trouble on clay. The match is in the books. The score will not change, but the story it tells, about where these two players are right now and about where Alex is heading, that part is still being written.